And welcome back to the Diamond Enigma podcast. I'm Michael, and this is Ricky.
The top five wrestlers each who should have been WWE champion but never was. So, in my top five, or my fame five as you like to say it, is Ravishing Rick Rude. Do you agree with this?
Yes, it was a top wrestler. He had the charisma.
He had
He
the
had
look,
everything you needed.
he had the charisma, he had the look, he was a great wrestler. He carried a few wrestlers in certain matches most of the time back in the day. I think he was also underrated as well. He was an underrated wrestler.
So why would you think that he never got the title?
Probably because of the big names at the time. There was Warrior, Hogan, and Savage, who, don't get me wrong, they did deserve it. I just think, I think that's probably one of the main reasons, because they was the top three guys back then, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously before the new generation started, from around 92, 93 onwards. But those guys, I mean, Ravishing Rick Rude was a top guy in the 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, and I believe the beginning of the 90s before he went to WCW. But I think he was world champion in WCW.
Yes, he was.
But it's not the WWE Championship, and I think even if it's just a short stint, I still think he should have had it. So that's my opinion on him.
See, back in the 80s, they kind of, because of those so used to the territory system, they kind of like decided who would hold the title for a long period of time, unlike they do today.
Yeah. I think look at the rivalries there as well. He had a good rivalry with Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah, very good rivalry actually.
And with Jake the Snake, which I'm going to talk about soon as well.
Well, I'm going to go into my number 5 now.
Okay.
And I'm going to kick off my list with Mr. Perfect.
Oh, that he's in my list as well. I absolutely love Mr. Perfect. He was, no pun intended, he was the perfect wrestler.
He had the charisma, he had ability. He also was very clever about psychology. It was like the early run of Bret Hart, if you like to compare it so people who don't know who he is could understand it.
Yep. He was absolutely brilliant. I mean, he had some good matches with Bret Hart. He had some good matches with I think he had some matches with Ultimate Warrior as well, actually. He had a good Intercontinental title run. I know he was undefeated for a little while back in the day as well, when he first came in. But the main thing I remember with Mr. Perfect, because obviously he had a few injuries back in the day, which may have affected him maybe becoming the WWE champion. I remember all that time he was a heel for years and years, and I believe it was Survivor Series 1992 where he became a babyface for the first time when he teamed up with Randy Savage to take on Ric Flair and Razor Ramon, and everyone loved him. He was ace. And then he had a feud with Ric Flair then, up to 93.
Which was probably one of the most technical feuds of that time.
Yep. They had a loser leaves WWE match on Monday Night Raw. I think it was on the first Raw, actually.
I believe so.
So yeah, I can never figure out why he was never WWE champion. At least he had a good title run for the Intercontinental Championship. It's a shame. I don't think he ever won the world title in WCW either.
I don't. If I'm correct, he didn't win it at any major promotion.
No.
Which is a shame.
I don't know if I'm not sure about the main other promotions or not. But I know he should have had a main WWE title run now, even if it was just for a few months.
Yeah, he was, considering how revered he is now, and to think that to get that sort of recognition nowadays, there'd have to be a 10-time world champion, and he wasn't. It goes to show a lot about his ability.
Yep. So
also
I totally agree with you on that one.
Right, we'll head into your number 4 then.
My number 4 is another one I'm shocked about this. Jake the Snake Roberts.
Oh, how he never became champion is beyond anyone.
He had it all, didn't he?
he was, whether he was heel or babyface, the crowd went crazy for him.
Yep, I mean, he was iconic as well. Everybody knew who Jake the Snake Robert was.
He transcended the actual company. He was known even to non-wrestling fans. You know, they could recognize him. They knew his gimmick. It's sort of maybe not as high up as Hogan and Savage and Flair, but still, it's something to be recognizable to non-wrestling fans.
Do you reckon it was like he's Jake the Snake is like one of those guys who does not need to hold a title to prove how good he is?
Well, he doesn't need to, like Perfect and Rick Rude, and probably most of these people in our list, to be fair. But he definitely deserved more. Maybe it was his personal demons that got in the way.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's easy to look on retrospect, but like we wasn't in the board meetings or whatever to see what was actually happening. But I think they could have gained a lot of traction with a lot of fans if he would have been champion.
Yeah, I agree. I reckon he'd have been a good champion. That's why I'm surprised he never won it, but that's such a shame. He has some really good matches as well. I think he was even in the first ever blindfold match at WrestleMania.
Well,
against Rick Martel. I think at WrestleMania 7, I believe.
I mean, like, when you look at some of the matches he had, and even against mid-carders, they could have been a Monday Night Raw main event.
Yep. I think when he went away for a bit, he came back in '96 and still had a pretty good run. But shame just what was happening all behind the scenes when it was to do with his demons again.
It's a shame, and just I guess it's part of the business. A lot of people have a lot of vices, and unfortunately, they catch up to you.
And he made that DDT something special as well.
I mean, like, for so many years, it was just a maneuver to get over into the next maneuver.
Yep.
And then he kind of like the build up for it and everything was just he knew how to work the crowd into making the most simplest moves effective.
Yep, he had some really good matches with loads of them. He had Brutus Beefcake, Kamala, Randy Savage, Undertaker. He's had loads of really good matches. I'm like I said, I think he should have done with at least a couple of months as a WWE champion. Anyway, right, next one for your number 4 in your Fame 5, who should have been WWE champion?
Jimmy Superfly Snuka.
Oh, this is controversial.
Why would you say that?
Well, when the news came out not long ago that he was he was classed as a murderer or something. I don't know the full details of it, but he got found guilty. It won't look good on WWE's part having a champion in the past who was classed as a murderer now.
See, I'm
But
not sure.
He was iconic, though. I'll give you that. He was iconic. Everyone knew who he was. He was a famous Samoan. Everyone knew he had a famous run with Roddy Piper in that segment in Piper's Pit when he got hit over the head with a coconut.
You see, with that whole murder thing, I'm not sure on all the details either, to be honest.
No, I don't know a lot about it.
It seems a bit sketchy from different sources, really.
Yeah, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
But if you look at him as a pure wrestler, he definitely would have deserved it for his ability. The way he got, even now, when you watch the WWE originals, they still mention him.
Oh yeah,
especially for the cage Superfly splash, which is one of the most iconic moments of wrestling history.
It was. I think Mick Foley was in the crowd as well watching that.
Was.
And that's people like him who inspired the Attitude Era wrestlers.
Well, it's that sort of thing where it kind of sparked off a revolution of you don't have to stick to the ring to make a great match. You can use your environment a lot more effectively rather than just crashing people into it. He used that cage to literally launch his career.
And talking of launching career, it was Jimmy Snuka was the first victim on the Undertaker's streak at WrestleMania 7.
Yes.
So there you go. That just came to my mind as well when I think of Jimmy Snuka. Right, so the next one. I believe it's my one, isn't it now?
Yep. You're number 3.
Number 3 for my top 5 of should be WWE champion, and I think you may agree with me on this one because this guy was. He had his own belt. I'll see if I can put it down to you. He had his own belt. He was made of money, and everybody had a price for this guy.
And he also was handed the title by Andre the Giant.
Well, this is the thing. Right, I'm going to mix these one because the top 3 and top 2, I'm going to do it in a 2-in-1 here. $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase and Andre the Giant. But was Andre the Giant classed as a WWE champion, or was that just... That storyline at the time is when he bought it and he gave the title, and it was like... Well, it apparently didn't go down in the record books as him being the former WWE champion.
See,
and that's what made that tournament at WrestleMania 4.
I can't work it out whether Andre was the champion and then because he vacated it to give it to DiBiase, then I forgot his name now. Jim, I think it was Jim's. I can't remember his name.
Jim, what's that? Sorry.
The commissioner came out and voided and said that the title was vacated. So
oh yes, that was from. Oh, every time I think of something like that, all I can think of is not Gorilla Monsoon. Oh, it's going to bug me now. I can't think of the name.
I can't think of his full name. But anyway, the commissioner came down. So in my mind, Andre won the title fairly. But then, as he was passing it over, because DiBiase bought the title off him, he kind of like vacated it, and then it's awkward because in a storyline like that, what goes down in the history books is different to what goes down on television.
Yeah, $1 Million Man. He was a great wrestler. He had a great gimmick. He knew how to use the mic. He had great matches. I think he would have been a good WWE champion for a little while. I reckon they should have kept that title for him for about the WrestleMania 4 bit, so he could defend it and lose it to Macho Man Randy Savage.
You see, why couldn't they done like because he didn't have the $1 million belt before that, did he?
No.
So why not have it as a lead up to him back making his own belt because he lost his? He lost the world title, so he made his own world title to replace it.
Yeah.
That's gone down as a good storyline.
I know, because I think $1 Million Man was in the WWF tournament at WrestleMania 4, and it was him and Randy Savage as the last two, and obviously that's when he didn't win it because Randy Savage won it then and kept it for a year. So that was the only time he came close to becoming WWE champion. Then he formed a tag team a few years later with IRS, Money Inc., and captured the tag team championships multiple times up to about late 93. And then he retired from the ring in WWE and became a color commentator for a little while. Then became a manager for Stone Cold Steve. Well, I want Stone Cold Steve Austin, but it was.
Was it Stunning Steve Austin back then?
Yeah, Stunning Steve Austin, the ringmaster. That was it.
But is that when he introduced the belt?
He gave the belt. He gave the $1 million title to Stone Cold Steve Austin.
I remember that.
And also, $1 Million Man had a good rivalry with Virgil after Virgil was his so-called bodyguard.
And then Virgil jumped ship.
Virgil turned on him because he didn't want to be his skivvy anymore, and he got his revenge and won the title off him. But I don't think ever there was a wrestler who never turned babyface, and that was the $1 Million Man. I could be wrong. Well, I don't think he ever did.
It wouldn't have suited his personality or his gimmick.
No, that's what I mean. He used to do some right funny things with the crowd as well, and he used to challenge people to bounce the ball 10 times, and when he went on to number 9, he kicked the ball away from the kid.
Yeah.
The kid started crying.
Yeah, he had it all.
He did. So, yeah, that's why I think $1 Million Man should have been the WWE champion at some point. I think we both agree on that one.
Oh, yes.
Right, what's yours next?
Now, mine is someone who's very, in my opinion, underutilized in the WWE. He's a former ECW champion, Raven.
Raven.
Yes, because he, as a wrestler, he was a very capable wrestler. It was good on the mic, and when he came across to WWE, that's when I think they didn't know what to do with him, but they wouldn't let him do his thing because he would have been made for like going into ruthless aggression era.
Did you know he was in WWF in the early 90s?
Yeah, but he still didn't win the title.
No, do you know why he wasn't like that? Because he was a manager.
No, but when he went into ECW, that's when he really came into his own, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was a manager in the early 90s for a team of the Quebecers. I don't know if you remember them.
Yeah, I remember the Quebecers, but
Yeah, he was the manager for them.
was he the original manager to him? Because he had a couple, didn't there?
Yeah, then he disappeared, and I believe he went to ECW and got his proper wrestling career started as a wrestler. And
Then
you said
WCW.
then he went to WCW. He had his own. I think he had Raven's Flock.
Yeah, he had his own following, which had a few rivalries with like big stars, Sting and people like that. But he never was able to fully realize his potential.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't like WWE. They didn't do nothing with him when he came back. All I think he kept doing was chasing for the hardcore title.
Yeah, because the ECW connection.
Yeah, that was it.
But imagine if Raven would have become the world champion. He had the looks, he was a very capable wrestler who could have gone toe to toe with the stars of that time. And it's a shame, really, that he only got looked down upon as a hardcore wrestler.
It's a shame that he knew what he was doing when it comes to doing matches and stuff like that. So
very good ring psychologist as well. Because gotta remember when he went to ECW, all the people like Tommy Dreamer and everyone else was like new, like not new, but they hadn't been to a big major company before. So Raven was able to kind of take him under his wing and help him out and do all sorts of things.
Shame. I think they could have done a lot more with him in WWE.
It was a very good, solid wrestler with a good gimmick, and the thing is, though, everyone knew who he was.
Yep. Quote the Raven. Nevermore.
And he got people learning about poetry as well. I mean, what more do you want?
True.
Right. Let's go on to your number 2 wrestler.
Right, my number 2 wrestler. Thing is, when I think this, we'll never know that he would have been WWE champion. I don't think there was ever a plan on making him WWE champion after what happened, but I still believe that he should have been. I would have given this wrestler the WWE title in '94, and the person I'm on about is Owen Hart.
Oh, yes, definitely should have been the champion at some point.
Yeah, and I reckon he was peaking the same time as his brother Bret Hart when they was having amazing matches at WrestleMania 10 and SummerSlam of '94 in that steel cage match. And I believe when he won the King of the Ring, I reckon just after that, that's when they should have put the title on him for a little bit.
They could have had it as a back and forth between the Hart brothers for a while. A big rivalry, 2 very sound wrestlers. You also got the, sibling rivalry angles to go on, and it would have worked well.
Yeah, he was very entertaining. He was a great wrestler. He had so much. He had a couple of personalities when it comes to his wrestling characters as well.
Oh yeah, he didn't mind taking the mick out of himself, did he?
Nope. I think he had a tag team with one of your favourite wrestlers of all time, who you don't stop talking about, of Jeff Jarrett.
Anyway.
Well, he did though. He did have a tag team with Jeff Jarrett for a while.
He did. It did propel Jeff Jarrett's career a bit.
He did. Hart Foundation, which we all know.
Yeah.
Back in with all the other Hart members. Intercontinental champion, European champion, tag team champion, former 2-time Slammy Award winner. He had it all, just never the WWE Championship, which is
Part of the
such a
nation.
yes, part of the Nation of Domination. He had a catchphrase of "I am not a nugget."
Yeah, he was a good worker for the WWE, and in my opinion, they'll never put the belt on him anyway.
And he was a former WWF tag team champion with British Bulldog and Yokozuna.
Yes. Very
So-
unlikely pairing, that.
Pardon?
Very unlikely pairing, but it actually worked quite well.
It did at the time, actually. When I watched that, I was quite shocked. I didn't get it. I was like, huh?
Yeah, it was kind of like, why would they put a fast technical wrestler with a sumo? But they brought out the best in each other.
They did. It was a good tag team for a while, so I enjoyed it. Right, so what about yours? What's yours number 2?
My number 2 is a son of a Hall of Famer, Cody Rhodes.
Cody Rhodes?
He should have been WWE champion.
Really?
I think during that legacy run, when he was about to come into his own, just as legacy was disbanding, I think you could tell that the crowd was going towards Cody, especially against Randy, and he would have been a fantastic champion, I think. He's athletic, charismatic, you know.
You know what? I really did like the legacy with Randy Orton, Ted DiBiase Jr. and Cody Rhodes. I really enjoyed that. But do you know what I remember? 2 things I remember from Cody Rhodes in WWE. One was with Damien Sandown as a tag team.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I think Damien Sandown was Money in the Bank at one point. It was close between Cody Rhodes and Damien Sandown going for the briefcase, and Damien Sandown got it. Because I remember him cashing into John Cena and losing pretty quickly.
Wasn't he the only person to... No, the second person to lose, wasn't he?
I believe so, yeah.
Because Cena obviously lost his, didn't he?
Yeah, Cena did.
But he did it as a
But
match.
it's not going to hurt John Cena, though, doing something
Well,
like
no,
that.
it wasn't. And it's kind of... I don't know why they gave the Money in the Bank to Sandow in the first place, to be honest.
I only remember Sandown from being the Miz's sidekick. That was brilliant. But anyway, off the subject with Cody, I also... Cody Rhodes, when he was dashing Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, but
I'll always remember that.
he is still a really great wrestler.
Yeah, true. But in WWE, you need to have a gimmick. You need to have a character and a gimmick to get over. They could never get the right gimmick or character for Cody Rhodes in WWE to get over. He kept changing him too much all the time. Don't forget, this was a person who turned to Stardust.
Yeah, but this was through WWE not utilising him.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. And that's why I don't think he was ever considered to even remotely become the WWE champion.
It's a shame, though, because he would have been great.
Because I've noticed sometimes when it comes to people who's second generation, they compare them too much to the fathers.
Well, and, you know, he did go in having to be compared to Dusty and Dustin, but he was a wrestler in his own right who was unique. Each one of them 3 wrestlers were unique from each other.
Yeah.
So it's... I just think that if you look at the wrestlers, especially around 2009-ish, back when Orton started hearing voices and had legacy, he would have been prime to be able to cash in on him becoming the champion, in my opinion.
Would his character got over, though?
I think with him being just leaving legacy, maybe keeping DiBiase Jr. with him, and then maybe they could have formed a new faction, something different. We don't know. It's at the end of the day, it's speculation and our own opinions.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I don't think they used Cody Rhodes properly.
I mean,
They never do though in WWE.
No, and it's, you know, if we just look at him as a wrestler on his own, I would say, especially around that time, he would have been a viable opponent for the likes of Orton, Cena, and all them, just to, you know, be in a title picture. at the
Yeah.
very least.
I agree. Just a shame, but at least he's doing well in AEW now.
He's doing very well. It helps when you're part of the management, doesn't it?
It does. It's all about being a part of the game. Anyway. Right, my final one, who should have been WWE champion. I was torn between two wrestlers at the time because I think both of these wrestlers should have been WWE champion, but I was only allowed to pick 5 because I wanted to be top 5. So the two I chose for who I should have been for would have been either Razor Ramon, but my top one, who I should have thought should have been WWE champion for a little bit, would have been Rowdy Piper. He was one of the top guys in the 80s, early 90s. He was charismatic. He did really good matches. He was a really good heel. He was a really good babyface. Over the top. I thought he was brilliant. He was controversial sometimes as well, and you didn't get that very much back in the day, which made him more memorable. Headlined a WrestleMania, first ever WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I still think he should have had a title run for at least half a year or something, even if it's just one title run. Luckily, he did win the Intercontinental Championship, which I think was the only title he won in WWE, because he had a great match with Bret the Hitman Hart at WrestleMania 8, which I'll always remember. And I still think he should have been. I think he was a movie star as well at the time, I believe, as well. So it would have been good mainstream for WWE
Yeah.
from WWE champion as well. So yeah, I just think Roddy Piper should have been at least the WF champion at least once. Do you agree?
I do. It was everything you said. I can't. Like, no one can argue that you remember him more than some of the higher. Well, they claimed those higher up stars, but to me, he was probably in the top 5 in the 80s.
Yeah, he was Rowdy before Rowdy was cool.
He definitely, it was one of the top stars who could have been propelled to Hogan's level.
Yep.
But saying that, he would never have been allowed to be propelled up to Hogan's level because he didn't have the right look they wanted, I feel.
Or Hogan didn't want him to be.
Well, in so many words, probably. Back then, it was more they wanted the superhero look, let's say. And
Yeah.
let's remember, Macho Man was the first one of his size to hold a title and make it look like he was meant to be the champion.
Yep.
He was the first guy of that size who could push all the gimmicks like Roddy Piper could, but he kind of did things that, were gasp-worthy moments.
He did use charisma, Randy Savage. He was one of my favourite wrestlers.
I mean, if you think about Savage's athletic ability compared to Piper's, if you got to weigh it up in this sort of means, he wouldn't have been able to match him in that sort of way.
They would have a great match together, I believe.
Oh yeah, I'm sure along the lines they would have fought, and it would have been fantastic.
Bret Hart and Roddy Piper match was excellent at WrestleMania 8.
But it is a shame he wasn't. He would have held it well. And
just remember, when you think you had the answers, he changed the questions.
But then, is that the reason he never had a title run? Because they had other things for him lined up?
Possibly, but if he held it for at least a month or something, it would have been something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but back then, titles being changed monthly wasn't really a thing, was it?
No, but it was only the same guys who had it all the time. It was either Warrior, Savage, or Hogan.
Yes, until you got into
the early 90s.
Yeah, early 90s. And then obviously with Flair coming across,
That's
and
when he
people
got
like that, you're gonna get pushed out of the way, aren't you?
Yep. But they're still using Roddy Piper for WrestleManias back after when he so-called retired for a little while. He had a match against Goldust at WrestleMania 12 in a Hollywood brawl match.
Which is one of the most funniest things you can ever watch.
It was very controversial.
It's just brilliant. It's literally gold.
He was a special referee at WrestleMania 10 for the WWF title between Bret Hart and Yokozuna.
Yeah.
He made special appearances on Monday Night Raw. He was a colour commentator at some pay-per-views with Vince McMahon.
Yeah, he could do it all, and I mean, they must have had their reasons, but he did successful work wherever he went, and yeah, it is a shame he didn't.
I'm about to say, just really quick on that note, before I jump on to your number one, it was very close between Razor Ramon / Scott Hall and Roddy Piper, but I think Roddy Piper just nicked it.
He just edged it for his.
Edged it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I still think as well, he was definitely up there, Scott Hall. Right, what's your final pick? Who should have been WWE champion?
Right, mine is more of a fantasy rather than anything else.
Okay.
He was a champion wherever he went, and he just never went to WWE at the right time.
Okay, who's that then?
The Icon, Sting. I think that he should have been able to go across and become champion. Obviously, there's a lot of politics involved in Sting's decision, and the way that WWE stars were treating the Invasion stars played a lot towards it.
True, but I'm just going to sell this on WWE's part for. I think they never had the chance to give him the WWF title because he was always a WCW guy. He was never considered to be part in the WWF. Even when WWE bought WCW out, Sting had no interest in going to WWE because he saw what they did with other wrestlers who jumped across, for like Goldberg, Booker T, for example.
Booker T, wasn't it?
Yeah. Even though I think they treated Booker T all right, actually. I don't think they treated him bad.
The thing with Booker T was he took the disrespect off him, and he just kept going and building, where Sting felt like through his, because he has one of the most storied careers of all time. You know?
Oh yeah, Sting was incredible. He was iconic. He was amazing wrestler. He had charisma. He had the whole lot. But in self-defense of WWE, they never really had the opportunity to give him the title because he was never really part of the company. And I don't think he would have fit in anyway because at the time when Sting was really, really popular, WWE already had top guys back then. I don't think it would have been fair on Sting. When Sting did eventually come to WWE, at least he got a title shot, but he never actually won the belt because obviously he got injured. So he might have been in line to win it. We don't know because he got injured really bad, didn't he? So he had to retire.
I always feel that with Sting, that if WWE would have treated the wrestlers with more respect, they would have got him.
Yeah.
And it's more. I mean, when you think
but it's all to do with timing, though, with Sting. You don't want someone like Sting to get lost in the shadows in the WWE when you've got big guys already there. Like, at the time, there was The Rock, Austin, Taker, Foley, Big Show.
Yeah, but
all these top guys. He would not have stood a chance because he's not a WWE guy at the time.
If it was based purely on talent and charisma and everything like that, he would have blew them all away.
I mean, I don't know if you heard about it, but you remember when NWO came to the WWE?
Yeah.
Everybody hated them guys for coming back. The only bit of respect they had for was for Hogan because if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan back in the day, there wouldn't be a WWE then, would there? Let's be honest.
Yeah, but then you saying that, you got to give props to the careers that both Scott Hall and Kevin Nash had before
Would
the NWO.
Would you reckon? Do you reckon it would have worked with that? I know the invasion angle was pretty shit, but if it was our dream booking for the invasion angle, it should have been someone like. 'Cause I remember Triple H being injured at the time, but I'm still going to put him into it. Like it was 5-on-5, wasn't it? It was.
Yeah.
I said it was. My invasion match would have been like Triple H, The Rock, Austin, Undertaker, and I don't know. I'd say Kane versus Goldberg, Sting, Hogan, Nash, and who else is who's top in WCW? Someone like that in that Booker T. Someone like that, 5-on-5. Now that would have been an invasion match.
Well, don't forget they had to use ECW as well.
Oh, no.
So you could have had, because I actually watched that event not so long ago, and it wasn't bad. You know, you had Jericho in it, the Dudleys, Rhino, but yeah, the best one would have been if they pulled out, because it seemed like they didn't put all the best.
If they would have done ECW separate, they shouldn't have put ECW with WCW. I didn't like that. It should have been in the ratings. It was WCW versus ECW versus WWE, wasn't it?
Well, no, in the ratings, it was WCW versus WWE, and there was no ECW wouldn't have competed. They didn't have the money.
But they had the fan base, though.
I loved ECW as much as someone possibly
I enjoyed ECW as well. I loved it.
But in realistic terms, they were never taken on. They were self-destructive. They were trying to do things that they're trying to keep up rather than doing their own thing, which was their downfall.
Yeah.
If they weren't trying to keep up with, because don't forget, Vince was a big fan of Paul Heyman and what else with ECW. That's why they went on to Raw and all these little spots.
Yeah, even on some pay-per-views at SummerSlam '95, there was ECW wrestlers in the crowd.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Coming like they got Too Cool Scorpio, was he?
Yep, he was wrestling on Raw.
Yeah, and they gave $1,000 to ECW because the actual advertisement they got for using Too Cool's theme entrance in ECW, they got 1,000. So Vince covered that himself.
See, but I still like you back on the topic with Sting though. Think in their defense, I don't think he would have fitted in WWE any period of time during its peak. It wouldn't have felt right.
I would disagree with that, but like I said, it was a fantasy thing more than anything. Where
could you honestly see a feud between Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Sting?
Well, why not?
It just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, but it's how you angle it, isn't it? You could have had
maybe let's agree on this. If Sting was to come into WWE when Jericho did, right? You know when Jericho jumped ship in 2000? If Sting was to jump ship then, I would have done that fantasy match between Sting v Undertaker. That would have made more sense.
There was a lot of times when, things happened wrongly, maybe, and throughout the years, from some perspective, you could say WWE was very brutal in some of the treatment of their staff.
Oh God,
which would kind of leave a bad taste in people's mouths for, say, Vince were going to Sting, oh, we want you, yet Sting's watching all this happening and hearing things and, talking to the wrestlers who jumped ship from WWE to WCW. And they even admit themselves, WCW was quite a bad place to work.
It was really bad, and no one enjoyed working there anymore.
And I think Sting would have relished the chance to go to a better company if, everything would have been right.
Actually, this would have been a better idea if Sting would have also come to be at some point, same time as Ric Flair when he was in Evolution. They could have had a Sting v Ric Flair rivalry back in WWE.
Yeah.
They could have had Ric Flair's final match against Sting at WrestleMania. That would have been a good match for him.
I mean, like, arguably one of Flair's and Sting's best matches was at the Great American Bash in WCW.
Yep.
I mean, arguably one of the best matches either one of them two ever put together. It was just a thing of beauty, and...
But I do agree, though, Sting would have been an ace WWE champion.
In my mind, it would have just been perfect.
It would. And on that note, peace out.